Ladies and gentlemen, adventurers of all ages, welcome. Today we have a very special guest with us. This man honestly needs no introduction. I mean, everybody know him. You've heard him. His voice is well known. So many characters, games, especially JRPGs, anime. Warm welcome to Jameson K Price. Welcome, sir, and thank you very much for attending today.
Thank you very much for having me.
It is an honor and a pleasure. So, uh, first of all, you've been doing acting since very young age. Correct me if I'm wrong, but since your fourth grade, right?
Yes, that
Awesome.
was my first show on
Mhm.
stage.
Awesome. So you went from stage to movies and then to voice acting, right?
Pretty much so. I did a lot of different stage work, not only kind of indoor theater, but outdoor theater, children's theater,
Mm-hmm.
musical theater, outdoor drama.
That's
Did a
nice.
bunch of different aspects of theater.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, because I have this voice, all through my life,
Yeah.
people have been saying, "Hey, would you record this for me?" So I started to get into some of the voice work. I actually did kind of poetry and prose competition when I was in high
Mm-hmm.
school. Um, but so there, that was kind of an ongoing, just every now and then people would go, "Hey." Uh, so when I got out here for grad school, just
Mm-hmm.
uh, in LA, the LA area, um, I started to do more. Um, well, after graduating, after getting my master's degree, my MFA, and I was getting out into the business. Yeah, I was doing film and TV, and then I also was having children, and that's when the voiceover thing really started to take off and become kind of a concentration, because I found I could get the same day rate for doing voiceover as doing a working 12 hours on a film. Like, wait a minute, this
Yeah.
is great.
Yeah. So you mentioned prose. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah.
in one play you were playing Mordred, the son of King Arthur. Am I right?
Yes, actually, that was my thesis role in grad school,
Mm-hmm.
and it was um, I think the original Tancred Dorst is the playwright. It's a
Mm-hmm.
German postmodern. I think it was 3 nights, 9 hours,
Mm-hmm.
similar to kind of the Nicholas Nickleby thing when that came out.
Yeah.
Um, we cut it down to about 6.5 hours. It was still 2 nights that we had to do. But that ended up being my thesis role for my MFA. And so I dived deep, deep into the whole Arthurian legend, which I was familiar with and loved when I was a kid reading the books. But I got to go really a deep dive into it, and wrote my master's thesis on that.
Awesome. We will touch the subject of fantasy and science fiction a little bit later,
Okay.
because I know you're a great fan, and there is a lot to talk about. But before we do that, do you think that that experience that you have on stage and on movies, also as a theater technician, do you right? Do you
Yes.
think that actually helped you to be a better voice actor? Because having an actual acting skills is like having a bonus power when you voice
Oh
act,
yeah.
because you know gesticulations and you move a lot in the booth when you are.
Yes, I
You
do.
you believe that that's the case?
Oh yeah. I mean, it all begins with acting, and
Mm-hmm.
acting. Um, it's the same kernel of truth, no matter if
Mm-hmm.
you're doing TV, film, voiceover, stage, whatever. You're still trying to invest yourself in an imaginary world and use your imagination to tell a story and to bring a character to life, whether that character has a lot in common with you or very little in common with you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, the acting really, that's the foundation. And coming from a stage background and base of all that, I think did help me a whole lot. And yeah, it's stood me in good stead as I've gone through my career. Um, and then it's just trying to adapt it a little bit to whatever medium you're in, and it's learning those little adaptations that are the hard part, where you have to take it from stage to screen. It's very different.
Oh, that's awesome. So now that you've mentioned medium,
Yeah.
well, the Japanese medium, the Japanese games and anime, we know that they do things a little bit differently from Western medium, like how Western games are made and how Western animation goes. Can you tell me, in your experience, broadly speaking, what is the biggest difference in the approach of work from the directors and the producers, and maybe your state of mind when you are voice acting a character which is meant for Japanese medium, Japanese games and anime, and Western games and Western animation?
Oh, that's tough because we are localizing
Mm-hmm.
when we're translating and dubbing the anime or JRPG uh, work. We're trying to make it accessible for an American or a Western audience.
Mm-hmm.
So we are taking trying to understand the tropes and um, all what goes into the art of Japanese games and anime, but then tweak it so that a Western audience is able to accept it, understand it, and identify with it. So it's interesting because we don't really do it for the Japanese market.
Yeah.
So that's not something that we focus on. We watch it, certainly. We preview it before we do it so that we get a feel for what's going on. Um, I mean, that's probably the biggest difference is that when you are localizing something, you are trying to honor what that first actor did. You listen to it and you go, okay, it's big and gruff and rough, or it's old and whatever. You're trying to go, okay, that's what they did. I want to honor that, but I want to interpret it for an American audience or for a Western audience. Um, when you're doing original game stuff here in the States, yes, you just get to do whatever you want to do. So you get to originate it and be that original actor, which is really cool.
Yeah, it is.
So it's a little more freeing. Um, but it's interesting because I also teach and trying to
Yes.
explain to my students how, because they look at that localization process as being very limiting. It's like, oh, I have to fit the mouth flaps. I have to, honor the original actor's work. I can't do what I want to do. It's like, no, but there is a certain amount of creativity in being able to take what you have and adapt it into that. There are tighter parameters than when you're doing original animation, and you can just be free and interpret what you want.
Yeah,
Well,
because
with the
Mhm.
director's input, of course.
Mhm. Yeah, because when you're working for Western medium, you are the first voice of the
Right.
character. So I guess you can have more. Were there any situations, for example, where there are phrases that are understandable in Japan,
Oh
but when
yeah.
you say them on English, they sound weird, maybe?
Yes, very much so. Syntax is odd, and it depends on because there'll be a translator of the
Hmm.
script, and then there will be a story editor who will adapt that translation and make it fit the mouth flaps. Now, there's a certain amount of latitude that we can have with sometimes they're reanimating things, so uh, we're not as specific on the mouth flaps as we used to be 20 some odd years ago. Uh, and with the software, audio software, they're able to fit our speech into those little flaps even better. So that's kind of cool and allows us a little more acting leeway with that. But that being said, there are certainly idioms and phrases and things that, and I cannot remember what it is. It was something about a cat
Oh.
that was in something we were doing, and we all went, we have no idea what they're talking about. And luckily, most studios that are doing JRPG or are doing anime are have people who speak Japanese or who are familiar enough with the culture, they can go, oh, that's this, and we go, oh. So then we take it and find what idiom in Western culture matches that, because the human experience is universal.
Yeah,
And
indeed.
so
It,
there's going to be something somewhere that's really close to that. And then we take that and try to make it fit the mouth flaps.
That's fun. Speaking of, the correlation between Japanese voice actor and Western,
Yes.
are you allowed to hear what the Japanese voice actors said and how they pronounced stuff before you start voice acting for a character? For example, I'm not sure if you're aware, but in your case, there is a Japanese voice actor that you share quite a few characters with.
Yes.
For example, Algol from Soul Calibur is voiced by Joji Nakata, and you also voice Algol.
Yes.
Sojiro, also Joji Nakata, you. And
Yeah.
one of my all-time favorite characters, Edmond Dantes from Count of Monte Cristo. Oh
Yes.
my God, we'll speak about Edmond a little bit later, but I really want to speak about Edmond. But are you allowed to hear how the Japanese voice actor said some words and then interpret it, or they just go like, "Here are the lines," and you go?
No, we always preview.
Awesome, great.
Pretty much always, as far as, yeah. There would be no. It would be really tough for them to say, here are the lines, just go, unless the IP holder, the producer, wanted to do that. But for the most part, we preview everything before we do it. So I do have a chance to listen to the original actor's work so that I can honor that work and be in the same ballpark and use that as kind of the jumping off point for my performance. And yes, they will find, my voice is similar to his. So, okay, the producer's like, yeah, I want that guy.
Nice.
And it's similar. There are, when Western movies are dubbed into other languages, there are certain actors that will, he's going to dub Tom Cruise or Brad Pitt or whoever.
Mm-hmm.
There are actors, dubbing actors in other languages that will kind of be assigned to, they interpret that well, that American actor well, and that's what the audience then gets used to and expects those actors to sound like.
Yeah, nice.
That's going to be very interesting with AI because
Oh,
we're running up against AI beginning to be able to take that original actor's voice and change the language. It's not there yet, but it's
yeah.
awfully close. And we may be out of a job, which
I'll
is
tell you.
sad.
Yeah, it is. I'll tell you honestly. Now that you've touched the subject, and I'll be
Yeah.
really brief about this. I am an artist. I work, well, sort of. I work in animation.
Ah,
I'm 2D animator. That's my daily job,
okay.
animation. And as an artist who works in the industry, who works for illustrations and animations, my job is also not safe because of AI.
Yes.
And but maybe I don't know how we'll, as a society, how we are going to progress about this subject. Things must be done to protect artists first and foremost.
Yes.
Uh, but I don't know. That seems like a very big subject.
Oh, it's
So
huge.
it's huge, right?
And the European Union, I think, is out
Hmm.
ahead of it.
Yes.
They've got stuff in place. They're passing laws, and we in the States, as voice actors, for the last at least 3 or 4 years, have been
Hmm.
screaming our heads off to our politicians. You've
Yeah.
got to do something about this. You've got to do
Yes.
something about this. And there are some bills in there
Hmm.
that may, uh, that are, I guess, in the works or something, but it
Hmm.
moves so slowly
Yeah.
that, yeah, people are cloning our voices and using them and having us say things. And it's like, that's not cool. Please
Not
stop.
on. Yeah.
We
Not
don't
only it's
want
not
that.
cool. It's scary.
Very
like
scary.
like it's scary. Because people use it sometimes. Oh, it's fun. Okay, maybe for a moment it's fun, but think
Yeah.
about it. Think deeper. It can influence people's lives like never before.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah,
Okay.
that's about AI.
Yes.
Because if we continue now, we can talk about it all day. The next thing I wanted to ask you about voice acting is how often are you allowed freedom in interpretation and maybe improvisation while you're giving your voice for a character, be that for games or anime?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
It depends on the director, really.
Mhm.
Uh, and the producing studio. Sometimes there's not a lot of time. And so, um, I mean, I've worked in the business for a long time. I know a lot of the, I'm personal friends with the directors. Um, you can get a feel for, are we relaxed and taking our time and having fun and being loose and saying, yeah, let's, get me an alternate take. Or is it, uh, no, okay, you can see they're tense. They got to get this done. There's a whole line of people, that have got to come in that day. Um, so we're sensitive to that. There are directors that want you to stay on script and not improvise at all. I will usually try to give that first. But if there's time, and if I think of something, and if it's a character I know well and I've got a good feel for, um, then I can suggest something. Especially if we're having problems matching the sync. So if we're having problems matching the mouth flaps,
Mhm.
um, then everybody starts rewriting. The director is the
Oh.
one who's really in control of that. But
Mhm.
sometimes the engineer will have a really good suggestion. Sometimes the actor will have a good suggestion. So it's a team effort when we're like, oh, okay, how do we make that work? And then
Yeah.
we try to make it work.
Yeah. Well, it is really nice to, for example, here when there are more mediums than one. For example, when a character appears both in game and in animation. I mean,
Yes.
when they, for example, in your case, when they take you for the animation because you voice acted in the game. The first example that I can think of is Sojiro because you're also in the anime. But
Right.
also another character that is very dear to me, one of my all-time favorite characters. That's Garen from League of Legends.
Oh,
Garen from League of Legends. I mean, there were times when I used to play League of Legends when Garen was maybe not the best by statistics, and I will always pick him because Garen is
oh,
so awesome. And I think that his awesomeness is because of how you portray him, the voice that you
oh.
give to Garen and all. I mean, that iconic shot, Demacia, when you strike with the sword. That's amazing. So when it comes to Garen, were you auditioning for League of Legends, or they specifically picked you up, like they called you, or you were auditioning for Garen?
I've done Garen for a long time.
Yeah.
I believe it was an audition. Most
Mm-hmm.
things are auditions.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's a request, they'll request an audition.
Right.
Um,
I see.
there are certainly times when you're just cast, and
Mm-hmm.
that's wonderful. I mean, if they know and they don't need to hear it. Um, but for the most part, you never stop auditioning. We never stop paying our dues. You never get to that comfortable. Okay, the money, the jobs just keep rolling in. You audition and audition and audition. Um, so for Garen, I'm pretty sure there was an audition
Mm-hmm.
with that. Um, it was funny because I mean you do. I like when I create a character, I look at the artwork as a 2D animator. Nice. So I look at what the artists have given me,
Mm-hmm.
and that inspires me. I'm very visual in that regard. Um, that are they big? Are they small? Are they do they look mean? Do they look nice? There's all kinds of things, little cues that are put into the artwork as the artist has interpreted the character. Um, Especially if it's original, something like Garen and League. Uh, so they've put in all these touches, and so all the armor, the big puff chest, he's so buff. It's
Yeah,
just like
he's
so
huge.
the voice just comes out as this. It's just like he's right there. So it's a very kind of heroic and a little bit of I mean he's arrogant, um, but he's a little bit stuck in his ways.
Yeah, yeah. That's
So
nicely put. Yeah,
so yeah.
nicely put. When we are talking about strong characters, you're also the announcer in Mortal Kombat.
Well,
And
I was for 9, 10,
and
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 11.
11. But in 11, you were like your voice was. I think now I'm sure that was the case where you were part of a special DLC, I think, or I might be wrong.
Um,
Might have been any of the other games, but I think it
in
was
a,
11.
in 11 there was I believe yeah, there was, I don't know if it was DLC, but you could pick anybody to be the announcer. It was very
Yeah.
interesting. They kind of round robined everybody. There's a new announcer for MK1 because it's a different
Mm-hmm.
um,
Setting different universe.
timeline,
Yeah.
or because everything resolved in 11, so
Yeah.
they had to kind of redo it. I am back as Ermac, however, which is nice. I started doing Ermac in 10. He didn't
Yeah.
show up in 11, so he's back in
Yeah.
MK1. So that was really fun to get to do him again. And in 9, oh, I was Noob Saibot,
Noob Saibot.
uh,
Yes.
Sub-Zero's
Older brother, the
older
original
brother.
Sub-Zero. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who comes? Do you know the story of the name Noob Saibot?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's Ed Boon and John Tobias's name
Yeah.
backwards.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah, I
awesome.
love that.
Yeah.
There's so many I mean, the lore of Mortal Kombat and how that was put together, I mean, just incredible. The story of those two, Ed and John, and
Yeah.
what they did, and then it kind of, I mean, it got its own momentum, and they're like,
Indeed.
okay, and they wrote it beautifully and just kind of expanded the stuff out, and it's the worlds of
The
Mortal
world.
Kombat are amazing,
Indeed.
and it was
Indeed.
so cool to do the announcer. It's such an iconic thing to do, and to get to do it for 3 different versions of the game was fantastic.
Yeah. Speaking of the lore, I mean, let's take Ermac for example.
Yeah,
Like a concept of a character, he's of all of those haunted souls, one being. I
yeah.
mean, how far the imagination can go, right?
Oh yeah,
Also speaking of the announcer, because you just mentioned previously that when you're working on a character, you like to see the artwork, but we never see how the announcer goes.
very true.
Except that we know from the lore previously that it's actually Shao Kahn.
Right.
But you're not voicing Shao Kahn, right?
No, but yeah, so it's Shao Kahn, but not Shao Kahn,
Yeah.
and they there was such a previous foundation of what that announcer sounded like, that because we all imitated it all.
Yeah.
So yeah, you go into the audition and it's like, okay, what's my interpretation of that fatality? And my voice, and it's one of the things where, because I was doing on-camera work and movies and TV and stuff, and yeah, okay. When I got behind a microphone, the microphones, we get along really well together. There's
Hmm.
something about my voice that works well with a microphone, and there's like I can rumble. It's a chest rumble or something, and so that announcer voice was really easy to do. It's not a loud voice at all. So they gain the microphone up. It's turned way up high, and you just talk down here, and then they compress it and do fun things, and it's like, wow, that's amazing.
It is.
It always blows me away when I hear it, and like, that's just wow, that's me. It's
Nice.
incredible.
It is incredible indeed. So now I'll go back to JRPGs. So
Oh
just to
yes.
give the scope of what you've done. So Octopath Traveler 2. Recently, I've played Unicorn Overlord. You're Calm in Unicorn Overlord. Uh,
Yeah, I was trying to remember that one, and it's apparently it's recent. I was looking at that
Very
going, wow,
recent.
very recent, but I don't recall the storyline.
The storyline,
So
well, it's a big storyline. Now, if I start explaining the
okay,
storyline, we are
we
going to
don't need to
live
do that.
now. But it's
But
the hero's journey. It's the
okay,
hero's journey. And Colm, your character, is one of those supporting roles who
yes.
helps the hero go through it. And he's somewhat of a father figure to one of the other characters.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay,
Uh-huh.
that's bringing back some memory. Okay,
Yeah.
yes,
And I'm going to touch on that subject as well a little bit later when we are going to talk about Sojiro and Nier.
yeah,
So others, you have many in Fire Emblem. So your Virion, your Nemesis, your Priam in Fire Emblem, different Fire Emblem
right.
games. Also, you're in Tales of Vesperia, your Duke. In Tales of the Abyss, you're Largo. Largo is a
Yeah,
very interesting
the
villain.
Black Lion.
Yes, the Black Lion indeed. And in Tales of Grace's F, you're Malik. So
Oh, yes.
Malik. So these are just some of the characters that I wanted to mention. Like there are so many others. And now when we are at the subject of Sojiro and Nier, um, while you were filming The Patriot, that's where your daughter was born, right?
She was born well before that. She was
Oh.
born 95.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so my last year of grad school was
Mm-hmm.
when she was born. So by the time Patriot came about, we shot that in 99.
Mm-hmm.
So she was three and a half,
Mm-hmm.
four, somewhere in there. Um, she's actually not exactly the reason why
Mm-hmm.
I went more into voiceover than staying in film and TV, but a big impetus because I was auditioning. Patriot was a 2.5 month shoot. I was
Oh.
gone. So I was missing my daughter's childhood.
Yeah.
Um, and it's great to work, but then I'm like, I can work later. She's not going to have another childhood. This is it.
True.
So I started to dial back. And then when my son was born, um, I dialed back even further out of film and TV. And I did the occasional thing here and there, but I really focused on just doing voiceover because when you're doing film and TV, they say, okay, you show up at 5 a.m. and you're working till midnight. Okay, you're done.
Yeah.
You're there all the time, and you're also going up for auditions and in voiceover. Well, usually, I mean, back then, 20 years ago, we did have to come into the booth or whatever, but you can do auditions from home if you have a good enough setup. And they go, when are you available? So I was like 10 to 2 because I could take my son to school and I could pick him up afterwards.
Yeah.
So, uh, and so he was born 2003. So that was, by 2008 was when he was doing school and stuff
Mm-hmm.
and by then storage was where it got to with games that got big enough that they wanted to be more cinematic and have
Mm-hmm.
more than grunts and moans and have actual dialogue. So that worked out perfectly, and I was able to be more of a father to my own children. And then I don't know if that's translated or that's why I do a lot of father characters, or if it's just because I have a big authoritative voice.
Maybe
But
both.
I have done a ton of father characters.
You have
Yeah.
actually both father characters and father figure characters supporting. For
Yes.
example, you're Nadi from Mobile Suit Gundam Iron Blooded Orphans,
Yeah.
who is a supportive character because he's the one who repairs Barbatos.
Right.
And speaking of Barbatos, this is coincidental. Now really,
Okay.
I had not. This is not planned. But speaking of Barbatos, just today this arrived. This is a Gundam
Ooh.
model of Barbatos,
Oh,
and
wow.
it arrived today. And now we are having this interview. I'm speaking with the voice who
That's
is actually taking care of Barbatos.
that's great.
It's so cool. Really, this was not planned. Uh, and do you think that your personal experience as a father and this that you've mentioned now, the situation with your daughter, helped you to better understand characters like Sojiro or Nier? Because Nier also has a relationship with his daughter.
Oh,
Although,
yes.
correct me if I'm wrong, in the original Japanese story, Nier is not her father, but her brother, I think.
As far as I understand it, what it was first explained to me was that um, two versions were made.
Mm-hmm.
So the original idea was a
Mm-hmm.
brother sister, and it was explained to me that for a Western audience, they went, they're not going to get the brother sister thing. Let's change it to a father daughter thing. Um, as I was kind of researching something recently, where I was researching stuff about Nier. Um, I don't know if it was so much specifically for a Western audience, but there were two versions made. There were two
Mm-hmm.
different ideas to play with. and maybe it was to see which one sold more. I don't know. I think they were different consoles. That like the father one was for
Oh,
PS3
I
or whatever.
see.
Anyway, so
Hmm.
there were two different versions made, um, and especially the father one was the one that was released for the Western audience. And yes, because I had a young daughter at that point, it was very easy to identify with Nier taking care of his daughter and doing, you know, what he could for her. Because as an actor, in my imagination, that's what I play with. So I
Yeah.
very much was working with my daughter in my imagination, and if I was in that situation, how would I feel? And so I could bring all that to it. Sojiro is a very interesting character because um, I love the arc that he goes through because he starts off, he's a tough, you cause any trouble, I'm gonna, you're out of here. Uh, and then by the end, he's warm and fuzzy,
Yeah,
making
indeed.
curry and coffee and supporting the protagonist, Joker, and the arc that he goes through with Futaba,
Ah, but yes.
wonderful. So that was I'm not that kind of dad in that I'm not
Hmm.
a strict, get on,
Hmm.
get off my lawn kind of guy that Sojiro starts off with. But um, I can play that. And I've got a big mean voice, and so I can, give him the dad voice. Uh, but yeah, that certainly did inspire and affect my performance. And I brought that as much as I could to make him who he is, who he
Yeah.
sounds like.
Well, it's a great performance because
Oh,
aside,
thank you.
no, really, because I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, because usually, as you said it yourself, you're given roles that are warriors and gods and
Yeah.
kings. For example, in Vinland Saga, you're King Sven. In Rise of the Shield Hero, you're also playing the king.
Yep.
Like, and then we have Sojiro, who is not this buffed warrior like Lu Bu, for example. You're
Oh,
also voicing Lu Bu.
Lou Boo.
Or
Yes.
Ryder from Fate
Yeah.
Zero. Ryder is amazing. Like,
Ryder was a
really.
lot of fun to play
Yeah,
because again, father figure.
indeed.
Um, uh, so he was, servant, but he was also more of a father figure uh, with that. But just the joy of life
Yes.
was so much fun to play, and that he took over every room he was in. He was just big and boisterous, uh, which is not how I am. So
Uh-huh.
it's very interesting. As actors, we get to play different parts of our personality or
Hmm.
things which are outside of our personality, which is a lot of fun to explore. You know, if I were this way, okay, now I'm this way, and
Yeah.
you get to play in that little world. Uh, so yeah, that Rider was a great fun, and again, it's nice to have um, somewhere to go, to have an arc.
Yeah.
Sojo's got a wonderful arc. Rider's got a bit of an arc,
Yeah.
although he does his opinions on kingship are interesting. I love that scene where they're
Uh-huh.
talking about uh, what a king should be. I
Yeah.
don't agree with Ryder, but okay.
But it's interesting to hear his point of view, and
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking, because once again, like I said, Sojiro is not this warrior, this king, this buff guy, but we
Yeah.
can feel the strength of his character,
Oh
and
yes.
the arc that he's going through. I hope that Sojiro was really fun for you to play and maybe take you out of your usual style of warrior, king, god.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a different different style to play with. Excuse me. But it's interesting because Sojiro uh, is probably closer to me.
Hmm.
I'm a little quieter. Uh, I do love curry. I cook. Um, love coffee. Don't do a lot of coffee, the caffeine anymore. But um, so so that was kind of easy and vocally, yes, he's not Lu Bu.
Yeah, he's not.
He's not. He doesn't stress my voice. Um, for Sojiro, it was just I was tired and annoyed. That was like those were my touchstones for him. At the beginning, anyway.
Yeah, yeah, because like you mentioned, he has a great arc. So you've also done anime, like tons of characters. Just to name a few series that you've been in: Bleach, Chad,
Yep.
right? And there is a funny anecdote about Chad. Like, you were not originally the first voice actor who
No,
voiced him.
no, Mark
And
Warden did it
mhm,
first
mhm,
for like the first 150 episodes.
yeah,
And then I don't know if he got another gig or what was going on, but he couldn't continue. The funny thing about that, I guess we have similar voices. I haven't listened to him, but people thought it was me.
yeah,
So I was getting fan mail. I'm like, it's not okay. But so people thought it was me doing Chad. So then when Mark couldn't do it or whatever was going on there, the studio went, hey, want to do this? Uh, and so they brought me in as Chad. I then got reverse fan mail. I got fan mail saying, "Oh, they replaced you, and the guy's not as good."
oh my God.
I'm trying to be,
Oh
because I was trying
God.
to match what Mark had done because he
Uh-huh.
established the character. So it's like I can't make it a jarring, like, oh, what happened to Chad? So I tried to kind of not imitate him, but be in the same range,
Yeah.
character wise. And then I was gradually able to kind of make it my own over the course of the next 300 episodes or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, that was interesting. And then I've now passed it on to Alain Mesa
Hmm.
in Thousand Year Blood War.
Yeah, Thousand Year Blower. So your earliest voice acting in anime was in Akira, right?
No, oh well, that was early, yeah, but
Early, among the earliest.
among the early ones.
Yeah,
But
among the
I
earliest.
spent a couple of years prior to that
Hmm.
learning and being trained
Hmm.
in the style by uh, a wonderful gentleman who he's long since passed. Uh, but he was responsible for, he worked in a manga shop
Hmm.
and was apparently responsible for getting anime into the States
Hmm.
and starting the dubbing process, or the subtitle, the subbing process, and then moving into the dubbing process. So he was like in the ground zero of all that, which I didn't know. I just met Kevin, and and he went, oh, "Okay, come here," and then he introduced me. I mean, I'd watched anime as a kid, in that
Hmm.
Kimba the White Lion and
Oh
Ultra
yes.
Astro Boy. Ultraman wasn't anime, but it was that
Yeah.
style.
Yeah, it was a
Uh,
live action. Ultraman was a live
yeah,
action, right? Yeah.
yeah, loved that. But so I watched all that stuff when I was a kid back in the '60s. But um, this was a little different,
Hmm.
and it was like, oh, okay. So I had to learn some different things, and the kind of the tropes and the memes, and I did a bunch of just generic characters,
Hmm.
that had numbers, not names.
Oh.
um, Man B. Oh yes, Man B. So I did whatever for him for a couple of years, and I had just gotten my MFA, and I was a
Uh-huh.
professional actor.
Yeah.
But I'm like, yeah, well, I'll do whatever. It was fun. I enjoyed it. Back then, dubbing was the bastard stepchild that nobody wanted to either do or admit that they did.
Hmm.
It was looked down upon, didn't pay well, but hey, it was fun, and I was acting, and it was interesting, and gradually, I started getting bigger and bigger roles. And he was like, "Oh, here, try this one," and I did things like Perfect Blue and
Yes.
Akira, where I had no idea what these were. And I'm doing, and now I look back on those and say, wow, these are huge. Like Metropolis, Duke Red,
Yeah.
and Metropolis. I mean,
Apple
just,
Seed.
Yeah, just
I
amazing things
yeah.
that now in hindsight, I'm like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it is such an iconic anime that influenced later science fiction, I guess, and how
Yeah.
things are done. Well, you've been also in Digimon and Pokemon. In Pokemon, you're Giovanni, the
In
boss. Pokemon
Pokemon
Origins.
Origins, because
Origins,
there's
yes.
been like 4 of us who've done Giovanni.
Yeah, I
Um,
think yes.
yeah. So yes, but I got to do it. It was so much fun because my son was heavily into Pokemon.
Hmm.
Uh, at the time when I was doing Digimon, I'm like, come on, watch Digimon. And he was Pokemon all the way. He had
Yeah.
all these, monsters memorized, and he had an
Mhm.
encyclopedic knowledge at age 4 or 5
Oh,
of
nice.
all the stuff. And I'm like, if you can apply this to school, you're gonna go places.
Oh, that's
Yes,
awesome.
but he didn't get into Digimon quite as much. But I did a lot more in Digimon.
Yeah. Uh, I've noticed that you usually mention the scene in Digimon where your character is revealed that he's possessed. Now,
Oh yes,
that's the
Oikawa, the
moment.
first character I did in Digimon,
Yeah,
um, who was an evil villain. I'm like, oh
yeah.
cool. And as often happens, um, it's coming over from Japan either very quickly or whatever it is. We don't know what's going to happen episode to episode. Sometimes the director is able to watch the season and has an overall arc and knows where things are going, but sometimes they don't even know because we haven't gotten the information yet. The episode hasn't been released from Japan. So I'm like, oh, evil, evil. Oh, possessed. Blah. No, I'm a nice guy.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's like, blah. So getting that, um, complete 180 happens a lot. It's
Mhm.
one of the things that happens in anime,
Yeah.
um, where, yeah, you then have to make this pivot as the character, still keep that character, but totally change their motivation. And
Yeah.
that's fun.
It
That's a
is.
good acting challenge.
It is. It is. So it happens often that something surprises you. Like some character starts to act this way, and then their character progresses in totally a direction that you did not foresee or not expected, or maybe not only a character but the entire story.
Yes.
How it goes. This happens.
Oh yeah, it happens a lot. So
Well,
you really have to be prepared for uh, for anything when you're
yeah.
working like this. Um, yeah, you never know. Are you really the bad person, or are you
Mhm.
maybe the bad person who's being possessed by an evil demon? Haha.
Speaking of possession, now I'm going to touch one of my all-time
uh,
favorite characters in anime, Edmond Dantes.
yes,
Edmond Dantes, your portrayal of the Count. Once again, like in Sojiro, you are going out of the usual characters that mostly are given to you. The
yes.
warrior, here you are this refined aristocrat, but with such a dark secret. And the way you speak while you're the count. And what I've noticed, and that's amazing, how your demeanor, so to say, changes depending on who you or who the count is talking to.
Yes.
Like when he's talking to Mercedes, he's different, he's kind. But when he's facing his enemies, where he wants revenge, now there is a different
He's
voice. And
ruthless.
ruthless
Yes.
indeed. And speaking of ruthless, there is one scene that remains with me even to this day after watching the anime. So the moment of the laughter, when the count starts laughing, like this maniacal laughter.
Yeah.
It's several seconds, but oh god, that was amazing. Really, that left with me for ages.
The
And
count
so,
was
mhm,
delicious. The count was delicious. He was so much
well
fun to
put,
play.
well put.
That's one of the roles where um, I got to play so many different colors, which as an actor is just yes, because yes, his the plan he sets up and talking to Mercedes and talking to the oh gosh, I can't remember his name, the son,
Yeah,
um,
he the son.
uh, the,
Uh,
to the
Albert,
boy,
Albert,
Albert. Yes,
Albert.
it's Albert. So getting to have all of that and how what his plans were for all of that and if it's for his enemies and individually and yeah, such a kind of dark, mysterious, sexy. I
Yeah.
mean, there was so much in that in the drawing. The animation of it was
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. It was very
Yes.
inspiring. So
Yes.
you look at that and they say, "Ooh, is he a vampire? I don't know. There's some teeth going on there. You
Yeah.
know, what's going on?" And then, of course, we find out, spoiler, he's possessed by a demon. So, hey.
Yeah, indeed. And speaking of that, what would you say is more fun for you personally?
Right.
Because you see, the Count is somewhere in that gray area, I guess, like when he's a villain, but he's not a villain because he was wrong.
Right.
Another character that I can think of, like that, is Duke from Tales of Vesperia. So, would you tell me which is more fun for you? The good guys, the bad guys, maybe these gray guys? Which one do you enjoy the most and you can, express yourself the most?
Oh, the gray guys. The gray guys. I spent most of my younger career
Hmm.
uh, playing the hero.
Yeah.
Um,
Garen.
oh no, I'm
Yeah.
talking before.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
before Garen. Yeah.
yeah, this is back in my young acting days.
Hmm.
Um, Not tall, but tallish, 5'11".
Hmm.
Then now I'm down to 5'10". Uh, you know, blonde, muscular. I was the hero character all the damn
Yeah.
time. Um, and that's fun, but it is kind of one note.
Hmm.
He's not the
Indeed.
hero's not going to change and become the villain. He's
Hmm.
the hero. He's the
Yeah.
protagonist. So he may have a story, he may be, but it's a lot of reacting to other people doing things to you as a hero.
Yeah.
Um, so it's not as fun to play. And
Hmm.
when I started, because I always had this big voice, um, and as I got older, the voice and the look coalesced as they have now. It's like, yes, now I look like I sound. Um, but I started to get to do villains. And I think
Hmm.
Mordred was really one of the first villains in grad school. I got to do that.
Yeah.
Um, and he was just fun and freeing in a certain way because the hero has got to be he's got a code. Heroes do this. Bum, 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 bum. Villains do whatever they want.
They do.
And every villain is different in different ways. So Mordred, I got to do. Oh wow, he had father issues. Okay,
Yeah.
so I got to play with all that kind of stuff and do a lot of different things. Same thing with doing um, later on in my voiceover career. If it's a hero character, I mean, yeah, Garen is Garen, and he's just going to do this and that, and he's
Yeah.
always going to be this way. Um, but you get into Duke from Tales of Vesperia, and again, kind of mysterious, a little soft spoken, very
Indeed.
powerful,
Very.
doing
Yes.
things for. I mean, he wants to get back to the natural world. There's like what he's saying makes sense, but then he's also the big boss, and
Yeah.
he's in the way of a lot of things. So that's fun to play. That's the most fun to play. Is the gray when if you can make an audience like you as a villain, that's it.
That's
Where
it.
they can identify with you and get sucked into your world, even
Yeah.
though you're not a nice character and you
Yeah.
may be doing terrible things. Maybe you're doing it from the right reason or whatever, but you are compelling them to identify with you.
Yeah.
And that's as an actor, that's the challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
How can I be bad and still have the audience like me? Ooh.
Well, I can say that you're achieving that goal. Like you're managing that, really.
Hope so. That's
And
kind of the goal when you're playing a villain.
mhm.
Um, you know, Lord Genome, I think is another one
Lord Genome
where
from Tingin to Paguran Lagan.
where he's
Yes.
villainous, and then you find out, well, he's actually trying to save mankind.
Save
And
humanity.
what?
Like he's keeping them down because he wants to keep them safe.
Yeah.
That was actually great anime. I really enjoyed it. It was fantastic, and your portrayal was phenomenal. So, well, I already know. I think I already know the answer to my next question, but still, I'm going to ask it. Which character or characters you're most proud of, and which of them remained with you even after you've done the job?
Oh, well, certainly Edmond Dantes is in that, and Ryder and Sojiro are,
Ojiro,
and even
yes.
Garen. Garen, though
Thank you.
he's a hero, you know, he stuck with me, um,
Yeah,
in many ways. But yeah, Ryder, oh, just the joy of life there is so wonderful.
indeed.
Um, and yeah, so those ones I think are the ones that really kind of resonate with me or have resonated with
Nice.
me, and still continue to do so. But there's so many characters that
Indeed.
I've done,
Yeah, so
and
many indeed.
we try to, as actors, invest so much of ourselves in those
Hmm.
characters, whether it's trying to find that within which we can draw out, or find something that's a nice counterpoint to what we
Hmm.
are. Um, it's all still just using ourselves, whether you're on camera and using your body as well as your voice, or if it's just voice, that's even harder
Hmm.
to physicalize or vocalize the physical. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes when you have on camera actors come in and do voiceover, it's sometimes
Hmm.
difficult for them to vocalize what is happening physically, whether it's sitting
It's
down
true.
in a
It's true.
chair or picking something up. We try to vocalize all that because it adds to, you know, the visual that you're watching that character in that game or in that anime do. Sometimes we'll add stuff in that,
Hmm.
you know, isn't there in the original Japanese, um, because oh that needs, you know, the mouth moved or it opened, we need a sound there, or they're exerting some sort of effort, you know, let's throw something in.
Yeah, that's nice. So my next question is regarding voice acting, but in a manner of how do you think that voice acting in general, I mean, the approach of you or your fellow voice actors and the equipment on how it's done, how do you think it progressed through the years? What do you think is the biggest advancement in voice acting since the time
Oh,
you started and maybe now?
I started just after tape.
Ah,
Actually, it was digital tape.
mm-hmm.
Um, but it was before that was magnetic tape, and
Yeah.
magnetic tape, which is where the term looping comes from.
Mm-hmm.
You would actually have to, with razor blades, cut the tape and then tape it together with clear
Yes.
tape, and so that the magnetic head, could read what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I started just after that,
Mm-hmm.
in '96, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
um, and so it was digital, but they couldn't manipulate things the way they can now. So back then, if you could do, you know, 20 lines, 20 loops in an hour, um, that was a good rate. You were clipping
Yeah.
along
Mm-hmm.
because you had to get it perfect. When computers got better and bigger, um, and the advent of software called Pro Tools, which is kind of the industry, what everybody uses, though there are many other software things out there, but Pro Tools is what I usually see in the studios. So that's what I work with in my home studio. Uh, it is just phenomenal in these software programs what they can do.
Mm-hmm.
They can compress it, they can expand it, they can pitch change it. Um, in my auditions, I'm playing with stuff. You know, you need the D at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the word in stood because you only got stood. So
Yeah.
you can take that little and take it from another word with the D in the
Mm-hmm.
end and stick it in there, and then it sounds perfect.
Yeah, nice.
So it is amazing. And so
It
that's been
is.
the biggest advance
Mm-hmm.
in our work, is that Pro Tools, then now we can do, you know, 40, 50 loops in an hour.
Yeah.
Um, if we're doing it wild, which is not to picture, I've done like 150 loops in it. I mean, you could just crank through stuff. Now, we don't like to work like that because it's really just aggressive and you're pushing stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
we'd like to be a little more nuanced, we hope.
Yeah.
Um, but it depends on the time and the style of the game
Mm-hmm.
that whether you're going to do one take or three takes on
Mm-hmm.
everything. But yeah,
Was
Pro
there?
Tools is the
Uh-huh.
biggest advance.
Oh, nice. Was there any time when you've done work and it exhausted you so much that like maybe you needed to take a break or something? Like,
Oh gosh, yes.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, Games in particular are difficult. Sometimes in anime, you'll find something where you're doing a big battle
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to exhaust yourself. But games in particular, because often it's just one session,
Mm-hmm.
you've got, somewhere between an hour and 4 hours, and you're going to get everything in there. So you're going to get all of the in-game dialogue with the different characters. You're going to get all of these different idols where the
Mm-hmm.
characters are standing there doing whatever. You're going to get efforts where they're picking things up or walking through mud or running in a broken field, or running on pavement. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's an even surface or an uneven surface. So we do all that kind of stuff, and then we run through attacks, defenses,
Yeah.
damage, and that's what we end with is damage, because and attack yells, big charging yells,
Mm-hmm.
battle stuff. Uh, but when you're dying and you're trying
Oh,
to accurately recreate being stabbed, being
yeah.
shot, being choked, drowning, and the worst is being on fire.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yes, because of the pain level in fire. Uh,
Uh-huh.
Now, I've never been burnt like that,
Yeah, thank
but
God.
I have certainly burned myself on the stove.
Mhm.
I have, I have enough knowledge of that pain factor that you then imagine that over your entire body.
Oh, yeah.
And it's horrific.
Yes.
We don't want to blow the mic out, but the engineer is going to be very careful and
Mhm.
gain it down and do whatever they need to do to protect the microphone. But we're in there acting like we are, in just horrific pain, screaming. And when you get that kind of uh, um, pain effect,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
everything tightens up, right? Because
Yeah.
it's ah. Well, your vocal folds tighten up as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you would go from a baritone to a
Mm-hmm.
soprano.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
indeed.
when you are like, it gets higher and higher and higher. So we're screaming in a different range than usual.
Mhm.
Uh, and yeah, that
Ooh,
can to do some wear and tear on you. You try to do those Friday afternoon, so you have a couple days to recover. The
I see.
worst for me was one of the old it was EverQuest.
Oh, EverQuest.
EverQuest, ancient game, um,
Yeah, that's
long time
old.
ago. That's an old one.
Indeed. I
And I
used
did
to
some,
play it, by the way.
ah, cool.
Yeah, for a
I
very
did
brief
some,
time, but I did, yes.
I did
Sorry.
some monster work on it.
Mm-hmm.
And, uh, and the director was good, a friend. He was very careful, very kind. But when you're doing monster work in particular, um, it's really hard to do without damage. Because if you get air, and
Mm-hmm.
at that point, for the software plugins that he had that were trying to get the monster effect, it wanted air. So the more air you put into it, the more the software algorithm or whatever
Mm-hmm.
could play with it. So there was a lot of that. And when you start adding that, it's like the worst thing you can do is whisper. That's the worst thing for your voice.
See,
Yeah.
really.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the way that you're holding your vocal folds open and making them phonate. Yeah. So whispering is like, it's hard. And it can do damage. So you're doing that with the monster thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it took 4 days before I could
Wow.
speak normally after that. I only did it once because I'm like, that's not worth it. You cannot pay me
Yeah.
enough
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
to lose 4 days of work. Yeah, this, uh, and
Yeah.
but that was, in a good way, an impetus for me to learn how to take care of my voice. So when
Mm-hmm.
Lu Bu came along, I had to learn, okay, how do I do that? Because first time I tried Lu Bu, that was painful.
Wow.
And then I found, okay, where can I put that voice? And how can I make this happen? And I learned how to put it in a place where there's no pain.
Yeah,
And I
I
have
see.
yet to be scoped because they can scope you. They take a
Yeah,
camera, stick it up your
through the
nose,
nose to see your throat. Yep.
because I want to find out what I'm doing. Because I think I know what I'm doing, but
Mm.
I don't know. I've done my deep dive during the pandemic lockdown
Mm-hmm.
was into vocal anatomy, vocal health, breathing,
Mm-hmm.
and all that. So that's what I've been doing a lot of teaching now, and trying to spread the word on vocal health and
Nice.
that actors, especially voice actors, but all actors, everybody should
Yeah.
know the apparatus. This is your instrument. This
Mm-hmm.
is what you're expressing everything with. Yes, your
Yeah.
body's involved, but your voice, know how it works so you can make it work efficiently, keep it for as long as you can. Um, but also, if you're going to do something extreme, how do you do that without hurting it? And so you can
Nice.
find ways to kind of vibrate tissue in
Yeah.
your throat, in your pharynx,
Mm-hmm.
that's not actually your vocal folds.
Oh.
So
Uh-huh.
I'm not. So the vocal folds are providing a fundamental frequency. They're
Yes.
providing the voice,
The voice. Yeah.
um, but then I'm texturing it and
Mm-hmm.
putting that gravel in there with something right above it. So
Nice.
it's something in there. There are actually little false vocal folds that
Mm-hmm.
can flap, and I'm like, maybe that's it. I don't know.
That's
But
actually a
I
great
found a way
idea.
to do that kind of textured gravel voice without damage.
I
And
see.
I have worked a ton with that.
Uh-huh.
That's in Ryder's voice. I mean, it started kind of with Lubu, but Ryder,
Mm-hmm.
Garen even has some of that, just a little bit.
Yes.
And for Demacia and that yell,
Yeah.
you can hear some of that, for Demacia! Ah! And it's got a little bit of gravel in it. And it comes from that little place that I can flap and make that texture come in. It's amazing, and I've been trying to teach
Yeah.
people because it's like it works, and it saves you when you have to do that, um, whether it's with an old character or with a big
Mm-hmm.
buff warrior character.
Nice, nice. That idea with the camera. Now that's a great idea actually. I never thought about that, but yeah, that's really a great idea.
I've
Okay,
seen a
so
lot of them,
uh-huh.
but I haven't had it
Yeah.
done. And I want to get it done at some point, but I'm sure it's expensive.
Well, I guess you can go to a doctor and just ask for medical examination. I mean, now
Well,
I
it's
know.
certainly part
Mhm,
of the a vocal actor's
mhm.
health team.
Yeah.
They should have a, I don't know what they're called, vocalogist,
Uh,
and like an ear, nose, throat person who specializes
Otorhinolaryngologist.
in vocal or
Otorhinolaryngology is the part of the
yeah.
medicine that works with the throat. So I guess,
There you go.
yeah.
Yes, I know that there are doctors, and I've been to some seminars where I've
Hmm.
learned a lot about some of this stuff. Where I think I know what I'm doing now, but and that's what they specialize in. But they're like, actors need to have, this is part of your medical team. Uh,
Nice.
Again, you have to reach a certain level because they're not
Yeah,
cheap,
I guess. Yeah, yeah, I
and they
guess.
shouldn't
Yeah.
be. They're giving you wonderful advice.
Indeed, indeed. Okay, so let's touch about a totally different subject now.
All right.
Your entertainment. So I know that you are a great fan of science fiction,
Mm.
fantasy in general. You've read The Lord of the Rings before the movies were out, right?
Oh gosh, yes. Well, I mean, Lord of the Rings was, in my childhood.
Hmm.
Well, when did they come out? The books. Yeah, they were out in the 60s.
Hmm.
What did Tolkien write? Anyway, so I grew up reading them.
Nice.
Um, so yeah, I loved those. And um, I mean, yeah, I've watched all the different movies. Uh, the old Ralph Bakshi film,
Oh, yes, they are incredible.
this wild, oh my
Yes.
God, crazy. Um, so yeah, I've loved the Lord of the Rings. Game of Thrones. Well, it's not exactly science fiction, but
Yeah.
before I
Mhm.
watched it, I'm like, I got to read the books. So I read all the books.
Yeah.
um,
Nice.
so yeah, I'm a big fan of reading, um,
Awesome.
and I mean, I love movies and TV as well,
Of course.
but it's a little more passive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you get sucked in and everything like that,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
when I'm reading, it's an imagination thing,
Indeed.
and um, and I can get sucked in, and everything disappears.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's a very cinematic kind of feel, but it's
Yes.
all in my head, and I'm in that world, uh, and so that's a lot of fun. But yes, so I
Yeah.
read the books before I saw the movies.
Yeah, that's nice. I mean, what you've mentioned about imagining things when you're reading, that reminds me of, for example, when we played Dungeons and Dragons, and you voiced a Dungeons and Dragons character,
Oh,
Wolfgar.
yes, that was so
Wolfgar.
much fun.
Yep. Also in Dark Alliance, in Baldur's Gate Dark
Yes,
Alliance, yes.
yeah.
Also, did this fact that you've already read The Lord of the Rings helped you when you were giving your voice for Aragorn in War of the Ring?
Oh yeah,
Nice.
yes. I mean, because you have an idea of who he
Hmm.
is, and you can bring that in there. Um, because there's that nobility underneath,
Indeed.
but he's also Strider, and he's not,
Yes.
he's hidden and he's mysterious and he's gray in that.
Indeed.
Is he
Yes.
good or is he bad? We don't know.
Yeah.
At the beginning.
Very nice. So, is there any character from any book, science fiction or fantasy, uh, that you would love to give the voice to if opportunity presents itself?
Oh gosh. Uh, God, nothing comes to mind. There's so much
That's
out
fair.
there.
That's fair.
There's so many different things.
Hmm.
Um, I'm trying to remember. It's fun because I loved Robert Heinlein, when I was a kid.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and I've never seen a really good interpretation of his work.
Hmm.
It ends up being kind of campy,
Yeah.
and it's a little bit stilted because it was for 50s, early 60s kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Um, but the whole Starship Troopers movie, oh God, it was awful. It
Well,
was not what I was hoping it would be, and I loved Starship Troopers, the book.
honestly, the first movie, is my guilty pleasure. I really like it.
Yeah,
It is a guilty pleasure. I really like it.
I watch it. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'll watch it, but
Yeah.
it makes me feel a little like it could be so
Oh,
better.
what? Yeah, yeah. I know the book is very different, though. Still,
So
okay.
there's some Heinlein characters
Hmm.
that I think come to mind anyway when I'm thinking about that would be interesting to try to
Yeah,
play.
nice, nice. So now tell me a little bit about the podcast that you're part of, Crypto Z, right?
Oh gosh, yeah, Crypto Z, um, tons of fun,
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Um, so I was approached to do the role,
Mm-hmm.
and oh gosh, so the director and writer, because it's based on a book by his wife, or
Oh.
that was part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But so it was all about kind of cryptids or imaginary legendary animals, Loch Ness
Yeah.
monster, abominable snowman,
Mm-hmm.
Bigfoot, whatever. So uh, what was really interesting was they were in New York with a sound designer. I'm in LA,
Mm-hmm.
and they were, and they cast a woman out of London.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
Wow.
how are we gonna make this happen?
Yeah,
That
all
was
over
my
the place.
that was my first introduction to Source Connect,
Uh-huh.
um, which is the software that now all actors are familiar with, and
Yeah.
voice actors anyway, because this was right before pandemic time and the
Mm-hmm.
lockdown. So we, through Source Connect,
Mm-hmm.
were all on together. Fiona was in London in the studio. I was in my booth here, and we could all hear each other through Source Connect. She had an engineer in her studio, and I recorded on my own. So we both recorded locally, but we were interacting real time
Yeah.
and acting together,
Mm-hmm.
which was, oh, this is all working. And then we send it off, and then the sound designer, um, he came from the world of documentaries.
Mm-hmm.
So he was used to taking audio from different places and making it sound like it was in the same place, or at least close enough that it wasn't jarring to the audience's ear.
Nice.
And I thought, when I hear the final project, I'm like, wow, just it. I grew up listening to like golden age of radio kind of stuff,
Oh,
um,
nice. Yes.
1940s, 1950s.
Mm-hmm.
This was in the 60s. I'm not that old, but it was so yeah, golden age of radio. The Shadow. Um,
Yes.
uh, oh God, sorry,
A Green Hornet, I guess.
Green Hornet. Well, Escape. Escape was
Ha.
one. Oh, I loved.
Mm-hmm.
So they were very much audio dramas
Mm-hmm.
where there was voice acting, but it was all there was a lot of sound design, and Crypto Z just reminds me totally of that when I listen to the wind in the Alps and we're climbing and doing efforts and all kinds of stuff
Uh-huh.
that we're telling the story.
Nice.
I'm into my booth going
Yeah.
as I'm climbing, so it was a lot of fun to do. Uh, and they put it together and made just an incredible podcast. I think it's 10 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can't remember. They have Hadrian, the creator of this whole thing. I think he's made it into a Discord channel.
Mm-hmm.
So he's trying to expand it and make it this a huge
Nice.
world building sort of thing,
Nice.
which is
Nice.
fantastic. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't have a whole lot of time to play in the Discord,
Mm-hmm.
um, but I really had fun doing that podcast, and it set me up perfectly
Mm-hmm.
when we went into lockdown, and they went,
Yeah.
well, we're gonna have to do this. I'm like, huh, I've already done that. I
You
can
already
do
done it.
that.
Yeah.
The only thing I had to
That's
do
nice.
was buy the official Source Connect program, not the
Mm-hmm.
free one that we were using to connect with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought that, and I was ready to go because people were like, oh yeah, you're broadcast ready. Like, cool.
Nice. Indeed. Would you do audio drama if you're offered the opportunity?
Oh yeah, no, I've auditioned for a number of them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've done several. Adventures in Odyssey apparently is an
Mm-hmm.
old.
Mm-hmm.
It's been around for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's a it's a Christian religious
Yeah.
podcast. Uh, it's a bit moralistic, but hey, they've good messages.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, I've done several of those for them.
Nice.
Uh, actually did an audio Bible. I don't know if
Oh,
it's out or what, but several characters they had. I mean, it's the Bible. It's a huge
yeah.
book.
Huge
So
care.
uh, a lot of different. So I did different kings or whoever in
Mm-hmm.
that. And so that's put together somewhere. Whatever other audio. Oh, and I've done some audio books.
Mm-hmm.
So those are kind of fun. Don't
Mm-hmm.
pay terribly well, unfortunately, because
Too bad.
I
Mm.
enjoy. I mean, I read to my children. That was great experience, and for audiobooks. But the audio dramas I like because there's a lot more um, setting the scene with audio.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
there's sound effects going into it, and I love that. The kind of Foley artists and how they make everything, um, all those sounds
Mm-hmm.
the footsteps, uh,
Yeah.
the rain, and it's like people watch these TV shows and films and they're like they don't realize that it's it's somebody in
Yeah.
a Foley room going,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
little
that's nice.
feet in gravel.
Mhm. So you've played games. I mean, you've played some of the games that you star in, right?
A little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm I'm not very good,
That's
uh,
fair.
which is tough. My early on, my son was he's not listening. Um, he's now 21. But back when he was like 8, it was
Uh-huh.
Algol.
Ah, from Soul
It was
Calibur.
Soul Calibur
Mm-hmm.
4, 5, I think 4 and 5.
Yeah.
But it was the one with Yoda
Mm-hmm.
because he liked Yoda.
Star Wars, of
And I of
course.
course played as as my character.
Yeah.
And he'd just beat the crap out of me. So,
Sorry.
then I'd give up or switch. But at one point, whatever character I was playing,
Mm-hmm.
he then played that character
Oh,
and
wow.
beat me
Oh,
after,
wow.
and he didn't realize that he
Uh-huh.
was like pushing buttons.
Yeah.
It was one of the only times I've ever like raised my voice at him. And
Oh, I
I
see.
think I threw the controller at some point. He pissed me off so bad.
I'm sorry.
It's remained with him to this day.
Uh,
Um, Not my finest moment, but it was just like he rubbed salt in that wound, man. It's like it's just look how bad you are, Dad.
oh, God.
Great. Um, but I do try to play some of the games. I love games. It's a lot of time.
Yeah, they take a lot of
I'm
it.
hustling for work. I'm auditioning. I'm
Yeah.
looking for stuff. I'm working on things. I'm putting together workshops, vocal workshops. So it's tough to sit there and play a game.
It is. But I think you've played Diablo 3, where you're the male voice of the monk, right?
Oh yes, the Diablo game was wonderful. We used to
Mm-hmm.
play. Gosh, what was it? It was Xbox.
Mm-hmm. So it was on a
It was.
console.
This was a game. A cooperative, and we used to play as a family.
Wow, that's so
And
nice.
so, because my daughter is 8 years older than my son, and my stepdaughter is 8 years older than my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she was probably out of the house by then. But so my son is like 4 or 5,
Uh-huh.
and we're as a party. It was a shared screen, not split screen. So everybody's on. So if one person lagged, like my son, uh, and we're trying to get over here, we're like, keep up, come on, come on, as we're all trying to go through. Um, Gosh, what was that game? Can't remember. Anyway, Diablo 3 was the same sort of thing where you could all play on the same screen.
Yes.
And so it was kind of a hark back to playing the way we did on that whatever
Mhm.
Xbox game it was. um, and it was similar kind of warrior mage characters and things like that.
Yeah.
Uh, that was a lot of fun. And yeah, so Diablo 3 was great to play.
Yeah. And I know for a fact that you also played Zelda, some of the Zelda games. In your opinion, of all those that you have played, which one is the best?
Oh gosh, I guess I'd have to say Zelda, just because that's the one we've stuck with most. My
Mm-hmm.
wife used to play Zelda, the old games,
Nice.
when she was back in
Nice.
college. So when they came out, she was like, "Oh, we have to do this," and that's where I mean we have sat um, and watched each other play and helped each other get
Nice.
through things. Um, well, because Halo was also wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And my son and I used to play when
Mm-hmm.
again it was like cooperative or split screen, or we could play in the same game
Yeah.
um, up through Halo 4,
Nice.
and we were both in Halo 5, and then it was
Mm-hmm.
single player. We couldn't play together, and we're like,
Yeah.
oh
Uh,
man, when we're
yeah.
finally in together, couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So, but that I think Halo was also because we had a lot of fun,
Mm-hmm.
blowing away aliens. Even though
Nice.
it was okay, it's just alien blood.
Yeah, it's
He's a kid. Like,
yeah.
at least it wasn't Mortal Kombat
Oh,
or Call
Mortal
of
Kombat.
Duty.
Brutal,
He's
yeah.
now moved up to Call of Duty and
Mm-hmm.
uh, Overwatch and
Nice.
all kinds of Counter Strike. Yeah,
Yeah.
he left the consoles behind. Although he occasionally will play. Like we got Spider-Man. Yuri
Mm-hmm.
Yuri did a
Mm-hmm.
great job in Spider-Man, but the
Yeah.
graphics are fantastic as well. So yeah,
Yes.
he'll play that on the console. But most of his work is now on Steam. He's a PC
Nice.
gamer.
Nice, nice, nice. Okay, so slowly we are coming towards the end of our interview.
Oh, this has
I
been
know.
delightful.
Thank you so much. It's been a delight for me as well.
Good.
Honestly, I would love to go on, but I know you're a busy man. I don't want to hold up more of your time. And uh, before we finish, uh,
Yes.
we spoke about this previously.
Oh, yeah.
I have small requests, and actually, while we were talking, I thought of something. I would add another little extra request of those that
Okay.
we agreed. First of all, let us greet the audience who are watching now. It will be nice if they are greeted by you.
Ah,
Simple hello, I guess. Okay, guys, that's for
okay.
you. Also,
What's up?
mhm,
Hey,
yeah,
everybody. Good to
yeah,
see you.
nice, nice, nice. Yes, thank you. That's great. Also, I think it's fair to give shout out to the organizers of the event.
Oh, yes. Pagoda and Comics MK. Pagoda and
Nice.
Comics.mk.
Yes,
Thank you.
nice. Nice. Pagoda and comics.mk are the organizers of this event. Now, about my two other personal requests. The first
Yes.
one is for my wife. Like, she's the biggest Persona fan. If you can notice, right there, we have a
Oh,
plushie of Morgana.
yes.
And not only Morgana, we have the manga series, steel book, steel case, Persona 5 Royal. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
this home is huge about Persona. And my wife introduced me to Persona. So, and she absolutely loves Sojiro. So, if you could impersonate Sojiro and address her in a way, I get maybe like, so her name is Angie,
Hmm.
and maybe if we imagine like she enters into LeBlanc, and how would Sojiro greet her?
Well, you're back, Angie. You're not causing any trouble, are you? Look, if you agree to help me, I'll teach you how to make the perfect cup of coffee. Not a bad trade, eh? Just make sure you lock up before you leave. Futaba's waiting for me at home, so I got to be heading back.
Thank you very much for that. And my final request. So
Yes.
I'm working on a story. One day I hope I will make it into a comic book.
Ooh.
One of my main characters, his name is Richter, and whenever I'm writing about him, it's your voice that I'm listening into my
Ooh.
mind. And
Wow.
somewhat I've based Richter on many of the characters that you voice. He's a knight, he's a warrior, he's a
Okay.
paladin, to be more precise. So
Ah.
if you would honor me to maybe say something like, I am Richter, and I'm here to smite evil. Something like that. Please,
All right.
if you would like.
I am Richter, and I am here to smite evil.
Wow. Thank you so very much. Ladies and gentlemen,
Ah,
Jamieson K Price, thank you, sir, very
you
much.
are welcome.
This
Thank you,
was
everybody.
beautiful. And that's it from this interview. So, bye bye.
All right. Bye-bye.